She thought it was just an abandoned estate. But the moment she stepped inside, she realized she wasn't alone. Someone, had been waiting for her, for 173 years. She had always dreamed of a place to call her own, a sanctuary untouched by the chaos of the world. Somewhere quiet, where the walls held secrets but not judgment, and where the nights could stretch endlessly in solitude. When she stumbled upon the listing, she thought it was a joke, an abandoned estate online for $500. Her fingers hovered over the mouse, hesitating, captivated by the photographs of ivy-covered walls, broken windows, and a garden completely overtaken by wild overgrowth. A hidden gem, the ad said. Too good to be true, she thought. But even as the words crossed her mind, her heart raced with a strange, magnetic pull toward the unknown. The drive to the estate was long, winding through dark, twisting roads where ancient trees leaned over like watchful guardians. Fog rolled through the valleys, brushing the tires with a ghostly touch, shrouding the world in silver mist. When she finally arrived, the estate was even more breathtaking than the photos, and far more unsettling. Vines clung to crumbling stone walls, and the front gates hung askew, groaning as the wind stirred. The garden was a tangle of thorns and weeds, yet here and there, stubborn roses bloomed, defiant, as if guarding secrets too old to speak. She stepped closer, boots crunching on the gravel, and a shiver ran down her spine. Something about this place felt alive. It's just an old house, she whispered, telling herself a lie she barely believed. But deep inside, a quiet voice hinted that this was no ordinary house. That it had been waiting for her, longer than she could comprehend. The front door creaked in protest as she pushed it open. Dust motes danced in the beams of her flashlight, settling on cracked floorboards and faded tapestries. The main hall stretched before her, its high ceilings swallowed by darkness, portraits of stern ancestors watching from their frames. Her footsteps echoed like a drumbeat in the silence, each step a reminder that she was utterly alone, or so she thought. Her fingers trailed along the banister, smooth and cold, pulsing faintly beneath her touch, as though the wood itself were aware of her presence. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, stretching unnaturally, almost moving when she wasn't looking. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. It's just a house, she repeated, though the words felt hollow. As she explored, remnants of the past whispered their stories. A teacup, cracked but still beautiful, sat on a table. A journal, yellowed and frayed, lay abandoned on a chair. And then, tucked behind a portrait frame, a folded piece of paper caught her eye. The handwriting was deliberate, elegant, ancient. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "You belong here," it read. Her breath caught. She looked around the hall, but the space was empty. The words vibrated in her chest, almost alive, and she could not tell whether she felt fear, curiosity, or something far more potent that stirred deep within her. She wanted to leave. She wanted to run. But the pull was undeniable. Night fell swiftly, and the estate transformed. Shadows grew long and twisted across the walls, stretching toward her, coiling like silent sentinels. The moonlight poured through the broken windows, spotlighting furniture draped in decades of dust. Every corner seemed to hold movement, every sigh of wind sounded like a voice, whispering her name. And then she heard it, a single, slow, deliberate step from the upper floor. Step, pause, step. Her pulse raced. No one is here, she told herself, but the logic of her mind felt fragile, inadequate. Another step. Closer. She froze, heart hammering, flashlight trembling in her grip. A shadow moved across the far wall, too quick to be cast by the swinging moonlight. She called out, her voice quivering, "Hello? Is someone there?" Silence. But it wasn't silence at all. From the deepest corner of the hall, a figure emerged. Tall, commanding, draped in shadows that seemed to cling to his very form. His eyes glowed faintly, molten amber cutting through the darkness. She stumbled back, her breath catching. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet she could not tear her gaze away. "You finally came," he said, his voice a low, commanding melody that reverberated through the hall. There was a weight to his words, a pull that made her knees weak. The shadows around him seemed to swirl and bend, accentuating his presence, and she realized, with a shiver, that he was no ordinary man. I don't understand," she stammered, fear and awe warring in her chest. "You belong here," he repeated, softer this time, almost tender, though still laced with authority. "I have waited, for centuries. One day, you would come." She laughed nervously, disbelief lacing her tone. "Centuries? That's impossible." But the house itself seemed to answer him, walls humming faintly with an energy she could feel in her bones. She had no choice but to believe. He was real. And the estate, these shadows, the letters, they were all proof. An ancient bond, older than time, had been waiting for her. Days passed. Nights grew colder. Sleep was elusive, the house would not let her rest. Every shadow seemed to breathe, every floorboard whispered warnings. She tried to leave, packed a small bag in secret, only to find the front door immovable, as if the house itself had decided she would stay. And everywhere she went, he appeared. Silent. Watching. Protective. "You cannot leave," he said one night, stepping from the shadows into her path. "You belong here, with me." Her heart rebelled. Her mind screamed to resist, yet the pull of him, of the estate, was inescapable. Her fear tangled with something else, a darker, more intoxicating curiosity. Then the world outside began to stir. Shadows beyond the windows moved with purpose. They were not human, not entirely. Danger lurked in the fog. And she understood with a shiver that the estate was not merely a home, it was a sanctuary. And he, the Alpha King who had waited, was its guardian. She could not leave. She could not run. Survival depended on him, and the bond they shared. Days blurred into nights filled with whispered conversations, stolen glances, and moments that stole her breath. Slowly, reluctantly, she began to trust him. His centuries of solitude, the burden of waiting, the power contained in his every movement, they fascinated her. Fear and fascination danced in tandem, each heartbeat drawing her closer to him. One evening, as the fog rolled thickly across the estate's overgrown garden, he extended his hand. Trembling, she reached for it. Warmth spread through her, more potent than fire, grounding her, claiming her. "You are mine," he whispered, not as a threat but as a promise. And in that moment, her fear melted into something darker, something beautiful and forbidden. She had come seeking a house, but she had found him. Even in surrender, the estate was not done revealing its secrets. Shadows flickered in the corners, voices whispered from unseen corridors, and a distant murmur suggested that their story was far from over. But she no longer recoiled from the darkness. She embraced it. She embraced him. As the moon climbed high and fog wrapped the estate like a protective shroud, she realized that her life had changed irreversibly. The house, the Alpha King, the centuries of waiting, it was hers, and she was his. And together, they would face whatever the shadows still held. Would she survive the night? Would the darkness claim her? Perhaps. But for the first time in her life, she felt alive, in the way only a bond spanning centuries could make one feel. And deep in the hall, the portrait seemed to smile, knowing that the waiting had ended at last. The first night in the estate arrived with a silence that was almost tangible. The moon hung high in the sky, spilling pale light through cracked windows and broken shutters. She had unpacked only a few essentials, leaving the rest of her belongings stacked in the dusty hall. Every creak of the wooden floor echoed in the emptiness, magnified by the cavernous ceilings. She thought she was alone. Yet, as she moved through the main hall, a subtle chill ran down her spine. A soft draft stirred the dust, forming ghostly shapes in the moonlight. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the sense of unease that gnawed at her. It's just an old house, she told herself. It's nothing more. She explored room after room, each one telling a story of forgotten lives. A cracked mirror reflected the faint moonlight, illuminating furniture draped in moth-eaten sheets. A portrait of a stern man, painted in oils centuries ago, hung crookedly on the wall. His eyes seemed almost alive, following her movements with a silent gaze. She stopped, heart hammering. A whisper tickled her ear, faint and distant. "Hello." She spun around. The hallway was empty. "It's the wind," she murmured to herself, though the words sounded hollow even as they left her lips. Her flashlight swept across the room, revealing a chair that had shifted slightly, a book that lay open where she was sure it hadn't been before. Her pulse quickened. She could no longer deny it, something in the house was aware of her presence. Then she heard it, a step from upstairs. Slow. Measured. Deliberate. Step, pause, step. Each one echoed like a drumbeat against her ribcage. She froze, holding her breath, imagining every shadow as a potential threat. She told herself it wasn't real, that no one could be here, but instinct screamed otherwise. The next step sounded closer. Closer still. Her eyes darted to the staircase. Moonlight spilled across the worn steps, illuminating a shadow that hadn't been there before. It moved with unnatural grace, silent but unmistakable. She tried to back away, but her legs felt heavy, as though rooted to the spot. A letter, forgotten on a side table, caught her attention. Its edges were yellowed, the ink delicate and looping. She picked it up with trembling hands. Her chest tightened. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked around frantically. The hall was still empty. And yet, she could feel it, the presence of someone watching her, waiting, ancient and patient. Fear twisted inside her, but it was accompanied by a strange fascination. She couldn't explain why, but part of her wanted to see what, or who, was here. She moved cautiously toward the grand staircase, flashlight in hand. Every step creaked under her weight, echoing through the hall. The shadows around her seemed to writhe, stretching in unnatural ways. And then, suddenly, a floorboard groaned beneath the weight of something heavy. Something deliberate. Something that wasn't her own. She froze. "Who's there?" Her voice trembled, almost swallowed by the darkness. Only silence answered. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw movement, a shadow flickering at the far end of the hallway. She turned sharply. Nothing. Just the moonlight, just the empty hall. Her heartbeat raced. She wanted to leave. She wanted to run. But she couldn't. Something, some invisible force, held her here. Compelled her to stay. The night stretched on, hours folding into minutes. Every sound made her jump, creaks, whispers, the soft brushing of air against the walls. Yet she couldn't bring herself to sleep. She curled up in the main hall, blanket pulled tight around her, staring at the flickering light of the flashlight and the dancing shadows. And then, she dreamed. In her dreams, the hall became alive. The shadows stretched into towering forms, moving with purpose. The man from the portrait stepped forward. His eyes glowed like molten gold. And she knew, she had seen him before. Not in person, but in the letters, in the whispers of the house. He had been waiting. Step, pause, step. She woke with a start. The room was silent. The flashlight lay beside her, beam dancing across the walls. Yet the feeling remained, the presence of eyes on her. Watching. Patient. Eternal. She rose, moving through the hall in a trance, unable to stop herself. Every corner revealed more clues, more hints of a history she did not yet understand. Dust-covered journals, portraits with faces frozen in time, a faint shimmer of light where no candle burned. And then, a sound that made her blood run cold, a voice, low and commanding, coming from the shadows. You have come. Her breath caught. She spun around, flashlight trembling in her hands, heart racing faster than she thought possible. The hall was empty. And yet, she could feel it, someone had been waiting for her. The night would not end. Sleep was impossible. Fear, curiosity, and a strange, unnameable longing twisted together inside her. The house had claimed her attention, her mind, her senses. And she knew, deep down, that she would never be the same again. Step, pause, step. The sound continued, relentless and measured. A presence that had been patient for centuries was finally awake. And she was its focus, its prize, its inevitable companion. She gripped the flashlight, stepping forward toward the staircase, drawn by something she could not name. And as her foot touched the first step, a shadow moved across the wall behind her, vanishing before she could see it fully. Her heart raced. She whispered into the empty hall, trembling. Who's there? Show yourself. The silence that followed was heavy, expectant. It pressed against her eardrums and her chest, waiting. And then, from the deepest shadow of the hall, she heard it again, a voice, low, commanding, eternal. Morning arrived in a hesitant, silvery haze, spilling through the cracked shutters of the estate. The house, though still and silent, seemed heavier now than it had the night before. Every beam of sunlight illuminated dust that danced in the air like tiny phantoms, and yet the light could not pierce the feeling of something waiting in the shadows. She awoke with a start, the letters she had discovered the previous night clutched in her hand, her thoughts racing in circles she could not escape. Sleep had offered no comfort, only fragmented images of shadows that moved with purpose, whispers that echoed in corridors, and the sense of eyes tracking her every motion. She rose carefully, her bare feet brushing the cold wooden floor. The house seemed to breathe with her movements, as though it were alive and aware. She could feel the pulse of it beneath her feet, a subtle vibration that carried a strange rhythm into her chest. It made her shiver with anticipation and dread, a mixture she could neither separate nor name. She wrapped a thin shawl around her shoulders, telling herself that the chill of the morning caused the shivers, yet she felt deeper than the cold, an awareness of being watched, observed, and somehow measured. Stepping into the main hall, she noticed that the floorboards had shifted slightly overnight. Not dramatically, but enough for a careful observer to sense the movement of unseen hands or weight. The furniture, too, seemed subtly rearranged. A chair that had been tucked neatly under a table now leaned slightly forward, angled as if anticipating someone's return. A book lay open, though she had left it closed on the previous night. Her pulse quickened as she crouched to examine it, the words inside handwritten in looping script, delicate and elegant, though centuries old. Her hands trembled. She wanted to believe this was some elaborate prank, the work of the house's previous occupants who might have left notes and trinkets to amuse themselves, even after death. Yet her mind rejected the rational explanations with a sudden clarity she could not ignore. The house was alive with intention. Someone, or something, had prepared it for her arrival. She rose, placing the letter in the pocket of her shawl, and continued her exploration. The library called to her with a pull she could not resist. Towering shelves of leather-bound tomes stretched nearly to the ceiling, and each one seemed to hum with history, knowledge, and secrets. Dust drifted lazily in the sunbeams as she traced her fingers along the spines. Some books were cracked, fragile with age, others smooth and cold as if freshly polished. A journal, thick and heavy, slid from the top shelf with a soft thud, landing at her feet. Curious, she knelt and opened it. The pages were brittle and yellowed, filled with accounts of lives long past, of generations that had lived within the estate, bound to it in ways she could barely understand. Names she did not recognize, dates that predated her own birth by centuries, and sketches of a man she did recognize, from the portraits in the hall, filled the pages. And yet, the descriptions suggested something more, something supernatural. The one who comes will be of the bloodline's reckoning. The Alpha waits, patient as the stone. She is the one who will awaken what sleeps beneath these walls. Her breath caught. The words seemed to hum with an energy she could feel through the soles of her feet. She pressed her palms to the floor as if to steady herself, grounding her racing thoughts. What does this mean? Alpha? Bloodline? Awaken what sleeps? A faint shimmer caught her eye, moving just at the edge of her vision. Shadows shifted in ways that defied natural light, stretching and curling toward her. She spun around, flashlight in hand, but nothing was there, only the empty hall bathed in sunlight. Yet the sensation remained, a prickling awareness that she was being observed, measured, and tested. Her heart beat faster with both fear and curiosity. Determined to explore further, she moved toward the dining hall. The large room smelled faintly of polished wood and time itself. Sunlight reflected off the tarnished silverware, highlighting a candelabra that now sat slightly askew from where she remembered leaving it. A chair had shifted in the corner, and she could swear she glimpsed a shadow move across the floor. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Hello? Is anyone here?" The silence that followed was thick, almost oppressive. She took a cautious step forward, flashlight beams sweeping over tables, chairs, and the faint glimmer of objects she could not immediately identify. The house seemed to hold its breath, as though aware that her presence was no longer a mere trespass but an event of importance. Her exploration took her upstairs, where the corridors were narrower and darker, the air cooler, more charged. Every step made the floorboards groan, and yet she felt them carry the weight of something older, something that had been waiting for centuries. The walls were lined with portraits, their eyes following her with unsettling realism. One, a man of immense stature with piercing eyes, seemed almost alive in the sunlight, watching her movements with patient expectation. A cold draft brushed her neck, making her shiver violently. She spun around, flashlight trembling in her hands. The corridor was empty, yet the sensation of being watched intensified. "It is just my imagination," she whispered. But she did not believe the words herself. At the end of the corridor, a subtle glow emanated from under a door. Her curiosity compelled her forward, heart pounding. The glow pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat, as if the house itself were guiding her to that room. She reached for the doorknob and hesitated. A whisper drifted through the air, delicate yet commanding. Her knees nearly buckled. She drew a deep breath and pushed the door open. Inside was a study, filled with dust-covered books, a fireplace cold and lifeless, and a desk that seemed untouched by time. Papers were scattered across its surface, some neatly stacked, others strewn as if recently disturbed. On the desk lay a letter, the same delicate script she had seen before. Her hands shook as she read it. She looked around frantically. The room was empty, yet she felt the unmistakable pull of someone, something, watching her. The sensation was almost tactile, a vibration in the air that made her skin tingle. She swallowed hard, whispering, "I'm not afraid," though her voice betrayed her. Hours passed as she explored the estate further, finding more letters, journals, and subtle signs of presence, a book fallen open, a chair slightly moved, shadows that flickered just at the corner of her vision. Each time, her heart raced. Fear and fascination intertwined, gripping her in ways she had never felt. As night approached, the estate transformed once again. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, stretching across walls, floors, and ceilings. Every whisper of wind sounded like a voice, calling her name. Step, pause, step. The sound came from upstairs. Her pulse quickened as she held her flashlight tight, moving toward the staircase despite every instinct screaming for her to run. She paused midway, listening. A movement at the end of the corridor made her freeze. A figure flickered in the shadows, impossibly tall, with eyes that glowed faintly, amber and molten. She blinked. The figure vanished. Her heart raced, and she fell to her knees, gripping the stair railing. Was it real? Exhaustion, fear, and the strangeness of the estate conspired to make her doubt her senses. Yet the letters, the journals, the objects moving subtly around her, all insisted it was real. Someone or something was here, patient, eternal, waiting for her to recognize it. She retreated to the main hall, clutching the letters to her chest. Her legs trembled, but curiosity compelled her to continue. Every corner of the estate whispered secrets, some she could not yet understand, others hinted at an ancient, powerful presence watching her. Step, pause, step. The sound was deliberate, patient. She realized she was not merely in a house, she had entered a story that had been centuries in the making. A presence had been waiting for her arrival, watching, and now, finally, the stage was set. Her flashlight flickered, and a shadow darted across the far wall. She spun, heart racing. "Who's there?" she whispered, barely breathing. The corridor remained empty. Yet the sensation persisted, a heat in the air, a pressure in her chest, a knowing gaze from someone who had waited centuries. She backed away, falling onto the floor. Her hands brushed against a letter that had slipped from the stack. The words shimmered faintly in the moonlight. The night stretched on, filled with whispers, faint creaks, and the occasional flicker of movement at the corner of her vision. Sleep was impossible. Her mind spun with questions, with fear, with anticipation. She understood, with a shiver that went to her bones, that she was no longer a visitor. She had entered a place of patience, of centuries of waiting, and she was the focus of it all. The Alpha waited. And she knew, with a certainty that chilled and thrilled her in equal measure, that nothing in the estate would be ordinary ever again. The shadows of the estate grew longer, stretching across the cracked floorboards like silent sentinels. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something darker, richer, almost magnetic. She moved cautiously through the halls, letters clutched in her hands, journal pages pressed to her chest, feeling the weight of centuries pressing in around her. Every floorboard groaned under her careful steps, each echoing like a drumbeat that reminded her she was utterly alone, or perhaps, not. Her flashlight trembled as she reached the grand staircase. Step, pause, step. She froze. The sound came again, slow and deliberate, moving closer. Her heartbeat raced in her ears. It's impossible, she whispered to herself, but every instinct in her body screamed that someone, or something, was watching her. She gripped the railing, her knuckles white, and slowly moved upward. At the top of the staircase, the hallway stretched ahead, dimly lit by the faint glow of the moon. Portraits lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her, lifelike and unerringly aware. She paused before one in particular, a man of immense stature, broad shoulders, and sharp features. His eyes glowed faintly, golden in the moonlight, piercing through the shadows as if he could see every thought racing through her mind. Her breath caught. He's real, she thought, stepping back in shock. And then he moved. Not like a man walking, but like a shadow shifting with purpose, soundless, impossible. Her flashlight flickered, and in that instant, he stood fully visible at the far end of the corridor. He was taller than any human should be, broad-chested, with hair dark as midnight falling to his shoulders. His eyes, amber and molten, locked onto hers. Time seemed to stop as the air between them thickened with unspoken energy. You, she whispered, almost unable to form words. Her voice trembled, fragile and fearful. Yes, he said, deep and resonant, like a melody that vibrated through her bones. His voice held authority, patience, and something else, something intoxicating that made her pulse leap. I've waited a long time for this moment. She swallowed, trying to keep her composure. I don't understand. Who are you? What is this place? He stepped closer, and the shadows seemed to bend around him, coiling like liquid smoke. This estate, it is not merely a house. It is a sanctuary, a vessel for what has been waiting. And you, his eyes softened for a moment, though the intensity did not fade. You are the one it has waited for. Fear and fascination warred inside her. Every rational thought screamed to run, yet her legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot by something older and deeper than fear. Why can't I move? She wondered. You belong here, he said, repeating the words from the letters she had found. But now, spoken aloud, they carried weight, certainty, and an authority that made her knees weak. Her mind raced. Belong here? What does that even mean? I don't. I'm not. The Alpha King took another step closer. He moved like a predator, silent and precise, each motion radiating power. She felt the air shift around him, charged with energy, and for the first time, she understood, this was no ordinary man. He was ancient, timeless, a presence that commanded the very air of the estate. "You cannot leave," he said softly, yet every word felt like a declaration. "Not yet. Not until you understand." She shook her head, trying to regain control of her racing thoughts. I need to leave. I didn't come here for this. I just wanted a house." He smiled faintly, a movement that was almost tender, though it carried an undertone of authority that made her shiver. "A house," he echoed. "You came seeking walls and wood, yet you have awakened something far greater. This estate, this place, has been waiting for you for centuries. And so have I." Her pulse thudded painfully in her chest. Centuries? He's been waiting for centuries? Her mind refused to process the idea, yet every instinct told her it was true. He was real. The estate was alive. And now, they were inextricably linked. Step, pause, step. The sound came again, and she realized it wasn't the floorboards. It was the rhythm of his presence, the subtle movement that she could feel more than see. The air seemed to pulse with him, each heartbeat drawing her closer, yet warning her to remain wary. She wanted to run, and yet she couldn't. She wanted to scream, and yet her voice failed her. She could only stand there, trembling, as he approached. "You are not afraid," he said, noting her internal struggle. "Or perhaps you are, but you are drawn here nonetheless. That is your nature. That is your destiny." She looked down, unsure of what to say. Words felt inadequate, fragile against the weight of his presence. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't understand any of this." He extended a hand toward her, palm open, steady. "Then let me show you. Let me guide you. You do not need to understand fully, not yet. You only need to see." She hesitated, torn between fear and fascination. Her fingers brushed his, and a surge of warmth, like fire wrapped in velvet, ran through her body. The connection was immediate, almost overwhelming, and she stumbled back slightly, heart racing faster than she thought possible. "You feel it," he said softly, almost a whisper, though it echoed in the corridor. "The bond. The waiting. The centuries that have led to this moment. You cannot deny it, and you need not try. It is here. It is real. And it is yours." Her mind spun. Every rational thought collapsed under the weight of his presence. Every instinct told her to flee, yet every fiber of her being was drawn to him. She could feel the estate itself thrumming with energy, walls vibrating subtly, as if acknowledging the reunion that had been centuries in the making. "Why me?" she asked, voice barely audible. "Why now?" He knelt slightly, lowering himself to her level, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "Because it is time. Because you have come. Because you are the one who can awaken what has slept, who can complete what has waited. You cannot comprehend it fully yet, but you will." Her legs gave way, and she sank to the floor, trembling. He remained standing, a towering presence, yet not unapproachable. There was patience in his stance, but also a promise, one that promised danger, desire, and inevitability all at once. Step, pause, step. He moved closer again, closing the distance, yet giving her the space she needed to process the moment. The air between them seemed alive, charged with centuries of anticipation, whispers of the estate echoing softly in the background. "You have awakened the estate," he said, voice low, almost intimate. And in doing so, you have awakened me. I am bound to this place as you are now bound to it. And together, we will understand the rest. Her mind reeled at the words. She wanted to speak, to ask questions, to demand answers, yet no words came. Only the sound of her racing heartbeat filled the silence, echoing in tandem with the subtle vibrations she felt from him, from the house itself. He knelt beside her, hand hovering over hers without touching. Do not be afraid. You are safe, with me. For now. A shiver ran through her body, fear, awe, and a strange, intoxicating curiosity mingled into a single sensation that left her breathless. The pull toward him was undeniable, magnetic, almost gravitational in nature. You are, she whispered, searching for words, you're incredible. But I don't know what to do. Then do nothing, he replied, soft but firm. Allow yourself to feel. To see. To understand. The estate, the bond, they will guide you. And I will be here, always waiting, always patient, until you are ready. For hours, she remained there, kneeling, the weight of the estate, the letters, the journals, and the Alpha King pressing in around her. Step, pause, step. The rhythm continued. The air vibrated. Shadows flickered across the walls, sometimes forming shapes, sometimes dissolving into nothingness. And she began to understand, this place, this man, the bond between them, was far greater than she had imagined. It was not merely a house she had entered. It was a story centuries in the making, and she had become the protagonist. You belong here, he repeated softly, as the moonlight highlighted his sharp features and molten eyes. And soon, you will understand why. Her pulse raced. Fear, curiosity, fascination, and desire mingled into a whirlwind inside her. She could not leave. She did not want to. And though she did not yet comprehend the full scope of what awaited her, she felt it, the inevitability of this meeting, the weight of centuries, and the unbreakable pull between her and the Alpha King who had waited. Step, pause, step. And she realized, with awe and trepidation, that nothing would ever be ordinary again. The night deepened, folding over the estate like a heavy velvet curtain. Moonlight spilled through broken windows, illuminating dust-covered furniture, glinting off cracked mirrors, and painting shadows that danced across the walls. She sat in the main hall, clutching the letters she had discovered earlier, while he stood near the grand staircase, a silent, commanding figure whose mere presence made the air thrum with energy. The Alpha King's molten amber eyes followed her every movement, patient, deliberate, yet impossibly alive. You wonder why this estate chose you, he said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, melodic, yet every word carried centuries of weight. You are bound to this place, as I am bound to it. Not by choice, but by destiny. She swallowed hard. Bound, to a house? I don't understand. I'm just me. I'm not. He smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth turning in a way that was both tender and unnerving. You think yourself ordinary because you have not seen the truth. You are far from it. This estate, this land, and I have waited centuries for you. You are the continuation of a bloodline, a living spark that has been prophesied since long before your birth. Her heart pounded in her chest. A bloodline? Prophesied? What do you mean? He stepped closer, each movement precise, deliberate, commanding. The shadows seemed to bend around him, curling and stretching as if acknowledging his presence. Many generations ago, this estate was home to my ancestors. They were not ordinary humans, as you would know them. They were leaders, warriors, protectors of a bond that existed long before the current age. They knew of a prophecy, a soul that would awaken the estate and its guardian after centuries of waiting. That soul is you. She stumbled backward, nearly dropping the letters in her hands. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what he had just said. Me? I don't understand. I'm just a woman who bought an old house. He tilted his head, his gaze softening, yet unrelenting. You are more than that. You have always been more than that. Fate has guided you here, to this moment, to awaken what has waited in darkness. And now, you stand at the center of it all. Her pulse quickened. What has waited? What do you mean? He lowered himself to her level, kneeling on the cold floor as though bridging the gap between their worlds. The estate is not merely walls and wood. It is alive. It houses memories, energies, and a lineage of power. And I have been bound to it, to guard it, to protect it, until the one foretold returned. The weight of his words settled over her like a physical force. Her mind struggled to absorb them, each revelation more incredible, more impossible than the last. And yet, despite the rational part of her screaming that it was insane, she could feel it, the truth of his presence, the estate, and the bond that hummed in the very air around her. You have waited all this time? She asked softly, almost in awe. He nodded. Centuries. I have watched generations come and go, always knowing that the one who could awaken the estate was yet to arrive. I have waited because I could not leave. I could not abandon this place. And now, you are here. Her eyes widened. Centuries? How is that possible? He smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. Time is different for me. The estate and I, we are bound together. I age, yes, but not as you do. I am anchored to this place, to its energy, to its purpose. And you have come at the right time. She shivered, the enormity of what he was saying pressing down on her. I don't even know if I'm ready for this. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You will be. You have always been ready, even if you did not know it. The estate has felt your presence long before your body arrived. Your spirit, your essence, was recognized as the one foretold. That is why you could see the letters, hear the whispers, notice the subtle signs. The estate called to you, and you answered. Her chest tightened, a mixture of awe, fear, and an unnameable longing twisting inside her. Every instinct told her to run, yet every part of her wanted to stay, to listen, to understand. She could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her, the pull of something ancient and powerful, and the undeniable presence of the man kneeling before her, alive with mystery and command. Why me? She whispered again, her voice barely audible. Why now? He took her hand, his touch warm, firm, and grounding. Because it is time. The balance must be restored. The estate has waited, I have waited, and now you have arrived to fulfill what was always meant to be. Your coming awakens what has slept, brings life to what has been dormant, and ties you to a legacy far greater than yourself. Tears threatened to fill her eyes. The sheer weight of destiny, of prophecy, of centuries of waiting, was almost too much to bear. And yet, beneath the fear and awe, a spark of something else flickered, a dangerous curiosity, a yearning she could not name, and a pull toward the man who had been waiting, centuries in patience, for her arrival. "Show me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Show me everything. I need to understand." He nodded, his amber eyes glinting in the moonlight. "Then you will see. But first, you must trust. Trust me, trust the estate, trust the bond that connects us. Without trust, you cannot awaken what sleeps. Without trust, the prophecy cannot unfold." She hesitated, every fiber of her being screaming in warning, yet something deeper, older, pulled her forward. I trust you," she said finally, though the words felt fragile against the enormity of the situation. A slow smile spread across his face, both proud and gentle, and he extended his hand again. "Then follow me. There is much to show you, and time, though fleeting for you, is precious for what must awaken." She took his hand, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip, the undeniable force of centuries behind it. Step by step, they moved through the estate, guided by whispers, shadows, and the subtle pulse of energy that seemed to resonate through the walls, floors, and ceilings. The first room they entered was the oldest, deepest chamber of the estate, a library untouched by modern time. The walls were lined with ancient tomes, scrolls, and artifacts. Candles flickered despite the absence of wind, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. The air was heavy with knowledge, with power, with the echoes of those who had come before. "This room," he said, "holds the history of my line, the secrets of the estate, and the truths you must know. Each book, each scroll, contains fragments of what has been waiting for you. You will read, you will learn, and slowly, you will understand your place." She moved among the shelves, fingertips brushing the spines of ancient leather-bound volumes. Every touch seemed to spark faint shimmers of light, subtle pulses that hummed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She opened one of the journals and gasped. Sketches of her own life, moments she had not yet experienced, were drawn in the delicate ink. The words described events as though they had already happened, yet some were warnings, others promises, all tied to the estate, to him, to her destiny. "This is impossible," she whispered. These are my life. My experiences." "How?" He knelt beside her, gaze steady, patient, and commanding. "It is the nature of the bond. Time is different here. The estate holds echoes, possibilities, and the potential of what will be. Your presence activates the threads, weaving them into reality. What you see is a glimpse of what has been waiting, and what is yet to come." Her chest tightened, tears welling in her eyes. Fear, awe, and a strange yearning collided in her heart. She realized, in that moment, that she was no longer simply a visitor. She was part of something far greater, something ancient, powerful, and destined. Step, pause, step. The sound came again, faint but deliberate, echoing through the library, as though the estate itself were reminding her of the presence of the Alpha King, patient, eternal, and undeniably real. "Are you ready to see more?" he asked softly. She nodded, heart racing. I think so. I want to understand everything." He extended his hand, and she took it, feeling the surge of energy, the pull of destiny, and the undeniable connection that now bound her to him and the estate. Step by step, they moved deeper into the shadows, guided by whispers, lights that shimmered without source, and the promise of secrets long hidden. And as the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting silver light across the estate, she realized, fear, awe, desire, and destiny intertwined in ways she had never imagined. The Alpha King had waited centuries for her, the estate had been alive with anticipation, and she had arrived to awaken what had slept. Step, pause, step. And she understood, with a shiver of both fear and excitement, that nothing in her life, or in this estate, would ever be ordinary again. The night had deepened into a velvet darkness that clung to every corner of the estate. Moonlight filtered through broken shutters, casting pale, shifting beams across the walls and floorboards. Shadows stretched unnaturally, curling into forms that seemed almost alive. She walked slowly, hand in hand with the Alpha King, her pulse racing, every nerve alert, every sense heightened as though the estate itself were guiding her. "Where are we going?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible above the whispering of the shadows. "To the heart of the estate," he replied, his amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "There is something you must see, something that has been waiting for you." Her curiosity, mingled with fear, propelled her forward. Step by step, they moved deeper into the estate, the air thickening with energy. She could feel it pulsing beneath her feet, vibrating in rhythm with her heartbeat, as though the house itself were alive and aware. They arrived at a grand double door, old and carved with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly in the moonlight. "Beyond this door," he said, placing a hand on the cool wood, "lies the chamber where the estate's power has been held for centuries. It is where I have waited, and where you will awaken what has slept." Her hands shook as he pushed the doors open. The chamber beyond was vast, impossibly tall, filled with shadows that shifted and pulsed like living smoke. Ancient runes glowed faintly along the walls, casting light that danced across the floor. In the center of the room was a stone pedestal, covered in a cloth embroidered with golden threads. "This is it," he said, his voice resonant, echoing softly in the cavernous chamber. "The heart of the estate. Everything that has waited, everything that has slept, resides here. And now, it is time for you to awaken it." She stepped forward, drawn despite the fear knotting her stomach. Her fingers brushed the cloth, and she felt a surge of energy ripple through her body. The air seemed to hum, alive with power. Shadows twisted and danced around her, responding to her presence, bending toward her as though acknowledging her as the one foretold. "Do not be afraid," he said, standing close behind her. His presence radiated warmth and authority, grounding her even as the energy of the chamber threatened to overwhelm her senses. "This is not harm. It is awakening. It is the estate recognizing its rightful heir." She nodded, swallowing hard, and drew a deep breath. With trembling hands, she lifted the cloth from the pedestal. The stone beneath shimmered with an otherworldly light, faintly pulsating as though alive. Symbols carved into the stone glowed brighter, resonating with a sound that was more felt than heard, a low, vibrating hum that seemed to speak directly to her soul. A sudden gust of wind swept through the chamber, carrying whispers in a language she did not know but somehow understood. "Welcome, awaken, chosen." The words echoed in her mind, sending chills down her spine. Step, pause, step. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. She spun around, flashlight trembling in her hand. The Alpha King was still there, but the shadows, they were shifting independently now, swirling, stretching, forming shapes that seemed alive. Figures flickered in the periphery, some human-like, others monstrous, but all watching her, acknowledging her presence. "You can see them," he said softly, reading her expression. "The guardians. They have waited for you as I have. They recognize you as the one foretold. Do not fear them, they mean no harm. They are part of the estate, part of the bond you now share." Her chest tightened. Guardians? What kind of bond? He knelt beside her, placing a hand lightly over hers on the pedestal. The stone glowed brighter under his touch, the symbols igniting with a soft golden light. The bond is ancient. It is a connection between the estate, its guardian, and the one foretold. You and I are now part of that bond. The estate has waited centuries for your arrival. And now, the awakening begins. A low rumble vibrated through the chamber, deep and resonant, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The shadows writhed and coiled, twisting into forms that seemed almost humanoid. They moved closer, surrounding her and the Alpha King, yet not threatening, only observing. Step, pause, step. She realized the sound was not from the shadows, not from the floor, but from somewhere deeper, a resonance inside her chest, syncing with her heartbeat. She felt a surge of energy, electric and powerful, coursing through her body. What is happening? She whispered, fear and awe mingling in her voice. The estate is recognizing you, he said softly. It senses your presence, your destiny, and your power. It is responding to you, to us. He placed a hand over her heart, and the pulsing beneath the stone pedestal seemed to synchronize with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Feel it? This is the awakening. She nodded, trembling. The energy swirled around her, wrapping her in warmth and light. Shadows danced, whispers echoed, and she felt alive. More alive than ever before, as though centuries of waiting, centuries of untold history, had been waiting for this moment. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a guardian, tall and imposing, eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. It stepped forward, bowing its head ever so slightly. Chosen one, it intoned, its voice echoing like a chorus. You have come. The awakening is yours. Her breath caught. I don't understand. Who are you? The guardians of the estate, the Alpha King explained. They have been bound to protect it, to ensure the one foretold arrives safely and completes the awakening. They will guide you, instruct you, and protect you as you take your place. She glanced around the chamber, the other shadows moving, bowing, and acknowledging her presence. A strange mixture of fear, awe, and wonder swelled in her chest. She was no longer just a visitor. She was part of something ancient, powerful, and unstoppable. Do you feel it? The Alpha King asked, his voice close to her ear, sending shivers down her spine. The bond? The energy? The destiny? She nodded, unable to speak. Every part of her being hummed with power, as though the estate itself had flowed into her veins. She could feel it, the centuries, the waiting, the anticipation, and the inevitability of what was to come. Step, pause, step. The sound echoed again, louder this time. The Alpha King moved closer, his presence overwhelming, magnetic, yet comforting. You are ready, he said softly. The estate has chosen you, the guardians recognize you, and now, you must embrace your destiny. A sudden surge of light exploded from the pedestal, enveloping the chamber in brilliance. Shadows recoiled and twisted, then reformed, circling around her like a living dance. She gasped, shielding her eyes, feeling the energy of the estate, the guardians, and the Alpha King merging with her own. Close your eyes, he instructed, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Do not resist. Let it flow through you. Let it awaken what has waited for you. She obeyed, heart racing, mind spinning, feeling the power coursing through her. Whispered words filled her mind, promises, warnings, fragments of prophecy she could not yet understand. And then, she felt it. The bond. Strong, undeniable, ancient. Flowing from the estate, from the Alpha King, from herself, connecting them all in a tapestry of power, destiny, and eternal waiting. She opened her eyes slowly, and the chamber seemed to pulse in response, light and shadow swirling in harmony, acknowledging her as the chosen one. The Alpha King smiled, amber eyes glowing brighter. It is done, for now. You have taken the first step. But the awakening is only the beginning. There is much more to learn, much more to understand. And I will guide you, every step of the way. Her knees weakened, but she steadied herself, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. Fear, awe, desire, and destiny collided within her, leaving her breathless. She had awakened what had slept for centuries, connected to a bond older than time itself, and she had done so beside the Alpha King who had waited, patient and eternal, for her arrival. Step, pause, step. The sound echoed through the chamber one last time for the night. The shadows receded, guardians returned to their places, and the estate seemed to sigh, as though settling into the new reality it had waited centuries to witness. She turned to the Alpha King, eyes wide, heart pounding. I feel it. Everything, it's real. I can feel it. He stepped closer, warmth radiating from him, and whispered, yes. It is real. And it is only the beginning. There are forces, powers, and secrets yet to reveal themselves. But now, you belong here. With me. With the estate. And together, we will awaken what has been waiting for centuries. Her breath caught, and she realized with both fear and awe that her life had changed forever. She had crossed the threshold from the ordinary to the extraordinary, bound to a destiny she could not yet fully comprehend, yet could feel coursing through every fiber of her being. And as the moonlight spilled over the chamber, illuminating the Alpha King, the guardians, and the glowing pedestal, she knew, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The estate had awakened, the Alpha King had been reunited with the one foretold, and she had taken her first steps into a world of darkness, desire, and ancient power. The estate was no longer silent. The air hummed with energy, subtle but undeniable, as if the walls themselves were alive and aware of her presence. Shadows shifted in ways she could not explain, curling along corridors, pooling in corners, then dissipating before she could focus on them. The guardians, who had seemed distant moments ago, now moved silently among the shadows, observing, waiting. She walked slowly, her hand brushing against the wall, feeling the pulsing energy that flowed beneath the surface. Each step sent vibrations through the floor, a heartbeat echoing through her chest. Her mind was still reeling from the awakening. The bond she had felt with the estate, with the Alpha King, was more profound than anything she had experienced, yet it carried an unspoken warning. The Alpha King walked beside her, silent, commanding, every movement deliberate. His amber eyes glowed faintly in the dim moonlight, fixed on her with a mix of intensity and something softer, almost protective. "You've awakened much tonight," he said softly. "But there is more you must face. The estate does not yield its secrets lightly. It tests, it challenges, it ensures that only those truly ready can claim their destiny." She swallowed hard. Tests. Challenges? What kind of trials? He glanced at her, his expression unreadable yet heavy with meaning. "The estate has powers older than any of us can fully comprehend. It has guardians, forces, and shadows that protect it. Some are benign, some are dangerous. You will face them, not to harm you, but to prove yourself, to awaken your strength, and to strengthen the bond between us. Her pulse quickened. Fear mingled with excitement, curiosity with trepidation. Step by step, they moved through the main hall and into a corridor she had not noticed before. The walls here were darker, almost black, with runes etched into the stone. They glowed faintly, pulsating as she drew near. These are protective wards, he explained. They respond to your presence, to your intentions. If you falter, the estate will react. If you are unsteady, you will face consequences. But you will not face them alone. I am here. She nodded, gripping his hand instinctively, feeling the warmth, the power, and the certainty that radiated from him. Step, pause, step. The floor beneath her feet hummed. The air thickened. She felt it, the estate was alive, aware, and testing her. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the corridor, faster than her eyes could follow. She froze, heart pounding. The shape was dark, shifting, almost serpentine, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce her soul. The guardians flanked the edges of the corridor, observing silently, their forms merging with the darkness. Do not fear it, the Alpha King whispered, his voice low, a tether of calm amidst the rising tension. It is part of the trial. Face it, and it will respect your strength. Flee, and it will pursue you relentlessly. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to step forward. The shadow moved closer, coiling around her, its presence oppressive and suffocating. She could feel a coldness radiating from it, a weight that pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Focus, he said, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. His touch grounded her, anchoring her to the room, to him, to the bond that now connected them. You are stronger than you realize. The estate has chosen you for this reason. Do not doubt yourself. She inhaled deeply, steadying her nerves. The shadow lunged, fast and precise, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. She raised her hand instinctively, and the energy she had awakened surged, responding to her fear and determination. A wave of light radiated from her, pushing the shadow back. It hissed, retreating, but not disappearing, circling, testing, measuring. Good, he said, his voice calm, yet tinged with pride. You have taken the first step. But the trial is not over. Step, pause, step. Another shadow emerged, larger this time, its form more humanoid, yet distorted, with limbs bending in impossible ways. Its presence was heavier, darker, and the air around it seemed to thrum with malice. Remember, the Alpha King warned, these shadows are not mere illusions. They are fragments of the estate's consciousness, manifestations of its power. They test not just your body, but your mind, your will, and your heart. Trust in yourself, and trust in me. She nodded, her chest tightening as fear and determination battled within her. The shadow advanced, moving faster than she could track. Her body reacted instinctively, the bond between her and the estate guiding her. Energy flared from her hands, surrounding her in a protective aura. The shadow hissed and recoiled, then lunged again. The Alpha King stepped beside her, and together, their powers merged. Light and shadow clashed, energy spiraling through the corridor. She could feel the estate responding to them, the walls pulsing, the runes glowing brighter. The shadows retreated, circling, testing, then dissipating into the darkness. She gasped, exhausted, her heart racing. I did it? He nodded, his amber eyes glowing softly. You faced the first trial, and you succeeded. But there will be more. The estate's trials are relentless, and they will not stop until you have proven yourself worthy. Her legs shook, but she steadied herself, drawing strength from the bond they shared. I can do this, she said, more to herself than to him. Step, pause, step. The corridor shifted. The shadows had vanished, but the air remained thick with energy. The Alpha King moved closer, his presence both comforting and commanding. You are learning quickly, he said softly. And with each step, the bond grows stronger. But the trials will escalate. You must be ready, mentally, physically, and emotionally. She glanced at him, her chest tightening. Fear, awe, and a strange longing mingled in her heart. Every moment spent near him heightened the tension, the desire, and the undeniable pull between them. She could feel his energy, his strength, his patience, and his centuries of waiting. And she realized, with a shiver, that she was drawn to him in ways she could not yet name. The next trial awaited them in a vast chamber at the end of the corridor. The doors were ancient, carved with symbols that glowed faintly. This room, he explained, holds the estate's essence. It will test your courage, your resolve, and your heart. Are you ready? She nodded, gripping his hand. Step by step, they entered the chamber. The air inside was thick, almost tangible, filled with whispers and shadows that moved independently. The floor pulsed with energy, the walls shimmered, and the room seemed alive, responding to their presence. A figure emerged from the shadows, a towering form, humanoid but distorted, with eyes that burned like coals. It moved with unnatural speed, circling them, testing, measuring. She could feel its power pressing against her chest, a weight that threatened to overwhelm her. Do not be afraid, the Alpha King whispered, his hand brushing hers. Face it. Trust the bond. Trust yourself. She focused, drawing on the energy within her, the bond with the estate, and the presence of the Alpha King. Light flared from her hands, striking the figure, forcing it back. It hissed, recoiled, then lunged again. The battle continued, shadows and light clashing, energy spiraling through the chamber. She moved instinctively, guided by the bond, her fear transforming into determination. The Alpha King moved beside her, their energies merging, a dance of power, control, and trust. Finally, with a surge of combined energy, the shadow dissipated, retreating into the darkness. She gasped, exhausted, her heart racing. The Alpha King placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his eyes glowing softly. You have passed the second trial, he said. But there are more. The estate's power is vast, and its guardians relentless. You must continue to strengthen yourself. Her chest tightened, not just from exhaustion, but from the intensity of the moment, the fear, the triumph, and the undeniable connection she felt with him. Step, pause, step. She realized that with every trial, their bond deepened, the tension between them intensifying, drawing them closer in ways she could not yet name. The estate had awakened, the Alpha King had been reunited with the one foretold, and she had taken her first steps into a world of darkness, desire, and ancient power. The estate was no longer silent. The air hummed with energy, subtle but undeniable, as if the walls themselves were alive and aware of her presence. Shadows shifted in ways she could not explain, curling along corridors, pooling in corners, then dissipating before she could focus on them. The guardians, who had seemed distant moments ago, now moved silently among the shadows, observing, waiting. She walked slowly, her hand brushing against the wall, feeling the pulsing energy that flowed beneath the surface. Each step sent vibrations through the floor, a heartbeat echoing through her chest. Her mind was still reeling from the awakening. The bond she had felt with the estate, with the Alpha King, was more profound than anything she had experienced, yet it carried an unspoken warning. The Alpha King walked beside her, silent, commanding, every movement deliberate. His amber eyes glowed faintly in the dim moonlight, fixed on her with a mix of intensity and something softer, almost protective. "You've awakened much tonight," he said softly. "But there is more you must face. The estate does not yield its secrets lightly. It tests, it challenges, it ensures that only those truly ready can claim their destiny." She swallowed hard. Tests. Challenges? What kind of trials? He glanced at her, his expression unreadable yet heavy with meaning. "The estate has powers older than any of us can fully comprehend. It has guardians, forces, and shadows that protect it. Some are benign, some are dangerous. You will face them, not to harm you, but to prove yourself, to awaken your strength, and to strengthen the bond between us." Her pulse quickened. Fear mingled with excitement, curiosity with trepidation. Step by step, they moved through the main hall and into a corridor she had not noticed before. The walls here were darker, almost black, with runes etched into the stone. They glowed faintly, pulsating as she drew near. "These are protective wards," he explained. "They respond to your presence, to your intentions. If you falter, the estate will react. If you are unsteady, you will face consequences. But you will not face them alone. I am here." She nodded, gripping his hand instinctively, feeling the warmth, the power, and the certainty that radiated from him. Step, pause, step. The floor beneath her feet hummed. The air thickened. She felt it, the estate was alive, aware, and testing her. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the corridor, faster than her eyes could follow. She froze, heart pounding. The shape was dark, shifting, almost serpentine, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce her soul. The guardians flanked the edges of the corridor, observing silently, their forms merging with the darkness. "Do not fear it," the Alpha King whispered, his voice low, a tether of calm amidst the rising tension. "It is part of the trial. Face it, and it will respect your strength. Flee, and it will pursue you relentlessly." Her hands shook, but she forced herself to step forward. The shadow moved closer, coiling around her, its presence oppressive and suffocating. She could feel a coldness radiating from it, a weight that pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. "Focus," he said, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. His touch grounded her, anchoring her to the room, to him, to the bond that now connected them. "You are stronger than you realize. The estate has chosen you for this reason. Do not doubt yourself." She inhaled deeply, steadying her nerves. The shadow lunged, fast and precise, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. She raised her hand instinctively, and the energy she had awakened surged, responding to her fear and determination. A wave of light radiated from her, pushing the shadow back. It hissed, retreating, but not disappearing, circling, testing, measuring. "Good," he said, his voice calm, yet tinged with pride. "You have taken the first step. But the trial is not over. Step, pause, step. Another shadow emerged, larger this time, its form more humanoid, yet distorted, with limbs bending in impossible ways. Its presence was heavier, darker, and the air around it seemed to thrum with malice. Remember, the Alpha King warned, these shadows are not mere illusions. They are fragments of the estate's consciousness, manifestations of its power. They test not just your body, but your mind, your will, and your heart. Trust in yourself, and trust in me. She nodded, her chest tightening as fear and determination battled within her. The shadow advanced, moving faster than she could track. Her body reacted instinctively, the bond between her and the estate guiding her. Energy flared from her hands, surrounding her in a protective aura. The shadow hissed and recoiled, then lunged again. The Alpha King stepped beside her, and together, their powers merged. Light and shadow clashed, energy spiraling through the corridor. She could feel the estate responding to them, the walls pulsing, the runes glowing brighter. The shadows retreated, circling, testing, then dissipating into the darkness. She gasped, exhausted, her heart racing. I did it? He nodded, his amber eyes glowing softly. You faced the first trial, and you succeeded. But there will be more. The estate's trials are relentless, and they will not stop until you have proven yourself worthy. Her legs shook, but she steadied herself, drawing strength from the bond they shared. I can do this, she said, more to herself than to him. Step, pause, step. The corridor shifted. The shadows had vanished, but the air remained thick with energy. The Alpha King moved closer, his presence both comforting and commanding. You are learning quickly, he said softly. And with each step, the bond grows stronger. But the trials will escalate. You must be ready, mentally, physically, and emotionally. She glanced at him, her chest tightening. Fear, awe, and a strange longing mingled in her heart. Every moment spent near him heightened the tension, the desire, and the undeniable pull between them. She could feel his energy, his strength, his patience, and his centuries of waiting. And she realized, with a shiver, that she was drawn to him in ways she could not yet name. The next trial awaited them in a vast chamber at the end of the corridor. The doors were ancient, carved with symbols that glowed faintly. This room, he explained, holds the estate's essence. It will test your courage, your resolve, and your heart. Are you ready? She nodded, gripping his hand. Step by step, they entered the chamber. The air inside was thick, almost tangible, filled with whispers and shadows that moved independently. The floor pulsed with energy, the walls shimmered, and the room seemed alive, responding to their presence. A figure emerged from the shadows, a towering form, humanoid but distorted, with eyes that burned like coals. It moved with unnatural speed, circling them, testing, measuring. She could feel its power pressing against her chest, a weight that threatened to overwhelm her. Do not be afraid, the Alpha King whispered, his hand brushing hers. Face it. Trust the bond. Trust yourself. She focused, drawing on the energy within her, the bond with the estate, and the presence of the Alpha King. Light flared from her hands, striking the figure, forcing it back. It hissed, recoiled, then lunged again. The battle continued, shadows and light clashing, energy spiraling through the chamber. She moved instinctively, guided by the bond, her fear transforming into determination. The Alpha King moved beside her, their energies merging, a dance of power, control, and trust. Finally, with a surge of combined energy, the shadow dissipated, retreating into the darkness. She gasped, exhausted, her heart racing. The Alpha King placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his eyes glowing softly. "You have passed the second trial," he said. "But there are more. The estate's power is vast, and its guardians relentless. You must continue to strengthen yourself." Her chest tightened, not just from exhaustion, but from the intensity of the moment, the fear, the triumph, and the undeniable connection she felt with him. Step, pause, step. She realized that with every trial, their bond deepened, the tension between them intensifying, drawing them closer in ways she could not yet name. The estate had awakened, the Alpha King had guided her, and she had faced the shadows that tested her. Yet she knew, with both fear and anticipation, that this was only the beginning. The trials would continue, the bond would grow stronger, and the connection between them would deepen in ways that were both terrifying and irresistible. The estate whispered around them, alive with energy, anticipation, and secrets yet to be revealed. She understood, with a shiver of both awe and longing, that nothing in her life, or in this estate, would ever be ordinary again. The estate felt alive in a way that was almost suffocating. Every corner, every shadow, every whisper seemed to pulse with energy, waiting for her next step. The air was thick, heavy with anticipation, and her heart pounded in rhythm with the hidden heartbeat of the ancient house. She walked beside the Alpha King, feeling both comforted and unsettled by his towering presence. His amber eyes glowed faintly, watching her closely, studying her every reaction as though he could see the threads of her thoughts and fears. "You have done well," he said softly, his voice a low vibration that reverberated through her chest. "The trials you have faced so far are only the beginning. The estate tests not only strength, but heart, mind, and spirit. And soon, you will face the darkness that lies within it, and within yourself." Her pulse quickened. "Darkness within me?" she asked, fear mingling with curiosity. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer, the shadows bending subtly around him, drawn by his presence. "The estate is alive. It holds memories, powers, and emotions that have accumulated over centuries. Some are benign, guiding you, teaching you. Others are dark, corrupted by fear, rage, or desire. You must confront them, not just to survive, but to awaken fully. And you are not alone. I will guide you, always, though you must also trust yourself." Step, pause, step. She followed him into a new wing of the estate, one she had not yet seen. The walls here were darker, lined with portraits of figures whose eyes seemed too real, too knowing. Their faces twisted in expressions of pain, longing, or sorrow. The air was thick, almost choking, with the weight of untold stories. "This wing," he explained, "is the heart of the estate's memories. Every soul that has lived here, every spirit bound to it, every secret kept, it resides here. And some of those memories are not gentle. They will test you, tempt you, frighten you. You must face them to understand the truth of this place, and your place within it." Her chest tightened. She wanted to turn back, to flee, yet some deeper instinct, some undeniable pull, urged her forward. Step by step, she followed him, her hand brushing against the cool stone walls, feeling the energy pulsing beneath her fingertips. The first room they entered was a library, larger and older than any she had seen before. The books were ancient, their pages yellowed with age, their ink faded but still vibrant in meaning. The shelves stretched impossibly high, disappearing into shadows. Whispered voices filled the room, soft and urgent, weaving together into a tapestry of sound she could not fully comprehend. "Do you hear them?" he asked, his voice low. "These are the memories of those who have come before you. Listen carefully, they hold lessons, warnings, and truths. But some voices are corrupted. They will try to deceive you, tempt you, or frighten you. Trust yourself. Trust the bond." She nodded, swallowing hard, and stepped forward. The whispers grew louder, forming words she could understand. Stories of love, betrayal, power, and loss. Faces appeared in the shadows, phantoms of the past, their eyes following her, their mouths opening to speak, though no sound came. Step, pause, step. One shadow moved closer, solidifying into a figure, a woman, pale and ethereal, with eyes filled with sorrow. "You should not be here," the spirit whispered, her voice trembling. "This place will consume you. Leave now, while you still can." Her pulse raced. I can't leave. I have to understand," she replied, her voice firm despite the fear knotting her stomach. The Alpha King stepped beside her, his presence a shield against the fear pressing in. "Do not listen to her," he said softly. "Some spirits are trapped by their regrets, their fears. They do not wish to harm you, but they will try to sway you. Focus on the bond. Focus on your strength." She took a deep breath, centering herself. The shadow woman's face contorted in frustration, then dissolved into mist. The room seemed to exhale, and the whispers softened, becoming a gentle murmur of guidance rather than warning. Step, pause, step. Another shadow emerged, this one larger, more menacing. It was a man, his features twisted with rage, eyes glowing red, fists clenched as though ready to strike. He lunged toward her, moving impossibly fast, and she stumbled back. "Face it," the Alpha King commanded, his hand gripping hers. "You cannot avoid the darkness. It must be confronted. Trust the bond. Trust yourself." She nodded, her fear coiling into determination. Energy flared from her chest, radiating outward in a protective aura. The shadow recoiled, hissing, then lunged again. Step by step, breath by breath, she moved with him, their energies merging, countering the darkness, holding it at bay. The battle continued, shadows twisting and writhing, testing her, teasing her, threatening her. But with each encounter, she grew stronger, more confident, more attuned to the bond that connected her to the estate, and to the Alpha King. Finally, the shadow dissipated, melting into the floor as though it had never existed. She gasped, her knees weak, her body trembling from exertion and adrenaline. The Alpha King stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, his amber eyes glowing with a mixture of pride and something deeper, more intimate. "You have done well," he said softly. "But there is more. The estate holds deeper secrets, darker truths, and greater challenges. And you are ready to face them. Not because you are fearless, but because you are strong. Stronger than you realize." Her chest tightened, not just from exhaustion, but from the intensity of the moment. Fear, awe, and a strange, intoxicating desire coiled in her heart. Every glance at him, every brush of his hand, every shared breath intensified the pull between them. She could feel his centuries of patience, his control, and the restrained power he radiated. Step, pause, step. They moved deeper into the wing, reaching a chamber that radiated a palpable darkness. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, with the weight of secrets long hidden. Shadows clung to the walls, curling like smoke, whispering temptations, doubts, and fears. "This room," he said, his voice low, "is the core of the estate's darkness. Here, you will confront not just the shadows, but the truths you have avoided, the fears you have hidden, and the desires you have denied. It is a test of heart as much as strength. Are you ready?" She swallowed hard, heart racing, but nodded. I am ready," she whispered, gripping his hand. The warmth of his touch grounded her, anchoring her against the rising tide of energy and darkness. Step, pause, step. They entered the chamber, and the shadows immediately coalesced, forming figures that mirrored their deepest fears, regrets, and desires. Faces from her past, twisted versions of herself, and even illusions of the Alpha King appeared, testing her focus, her resolve, and the bond they shared. "Do not falter," he whispered, standing close behind her. "Face them. Accept them. They are part of you, part of the estate, part of the destiny that binds us together." Her chest tightened, tears welling in her eyes. The shadows advanced, circling, whispering, pressing in. She could feel the energy building inside her, raw and untamed, a mixture of fear, power, and something deeper, something intoxicating. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and drew on the bond that linked her to the Alpha King and the estate. Energy flared from her hands, forming a protective barrier that pushed back the shadows. They hissed, recoiled, then lunged again, testing her determination. Step by step, breath by breath, she advanced, guided by the Alpha King, strengthened by the bond, and fueled by a growing awareness of her own power. Finally, the shadows dissipated, retreating into the corners of the chamber. The room exhaled, the air lightening, the oppressive weight lifting. She gasped, trembling, exhausted but exhilarated. The Alpha King stepped close, placing a hand on her cheek, his amber eyes locking with hers. "You have done more than survive," he said softly. "You have embraced the darkness, confronted the fears, and emerged stronger. The bond, it has grown. Our connection, deeper than ever. And soon, you will see just how powerful that bond can be." Her breath caught, heart pounding, as she realized the truth of his words. Fear, desire, and awe mingled in her chest, creating a heady, intoxicating mixture. She had faced the estate's darkness, confronted her own fears, and emerged stronger, not alone, but with him by her side. Step, pause, step. The estate seemed to pulse around them, alive with energy, anticipation, and secrets yet to reveal. And she understood, with a shiver of both fear and desire, that nothing in her life, or in this estate, would ever be ordinary again. The estate was alive in a way she had never experienced before. Every shadow, every flicker of candlelight, every whisper of the wind carried a pulse of energy that vibrated in her bones. The trials had tested her, pushed her to the edge, and now she stood at the threshold of the estate's heart, a place where all its power, secrets, and destiny converged. The Alpha King walked beside her, tall, commanding, yet impossibly tender. His amber eyes glowed like molten gold, reflecting both centuries of patience and a fire that had waited only for her. She could feel the weight of his presence, the pull of his centuries-long longing, and the unspoken promise that they were about to step into something far beyond mortal comprehension. "This is it," he said softly, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through her chest. "The heart of the estate. Everything we have faced, every shadow, every trial, it leads here. And now, you must awaken what has slept for centuries. Not just the estate, but yourself." Your power, your destiny, your bond with me, everything culminates here. Her chest tightened. I'm ready, she whispered, though her voice trembled with anticipation and fear. She had grown stronger through the trials, faced shadows, confronted her fears, and embraced the darkness within herself, but the final awakening, that felt like stepping into eternity. Step, pause, step. They entered the heart chamber, and the room responded immediately. Light and shadow twisted in harmony, forming intricate patterns on the floor and walls. Runes glowed brighter, casting reflections that danced like fireflies. The air thrummed with energy, heavy and intoxicating, alive with centuries of waiting and anticipation. At the center of the chamber was the stone pedestal, now glowing with an intensity she had never seen before. The Alpha King moved beside her, placing his hand lightly on hers. Together, he said. We awaken it together. She nodded, drawing a deep breath, and they placed their hands on the pedestal. Energy surged through her, bright and wild, making her knees weak and her heart race. The room vibrated, the shadows swirling, the whispers rising into a chorus that spoke directly to her soul. Awaken, fulfill, unite. Step, pause, step. The ground beneath them hummed, resonating with the rhythm of their bond. She felt the Alpha King's energy intertwining with hers, centuries of waiting, patience, and desire merging with the power she had awakened. The pedestal pulsed beneath their hands, responding to their unity, and the chamber erupted in light, energy spiraling into the air in brilliant arcs. Shadows from the corners of the room coalesced into forms, guardians, memories, and fragments of the estate itself, circling them, acknowledging her as the chosen one. They bowed, whispered, and shimmered, as if recognizing the bond that had grown between them. You are extraordinary, the Alpha King whispered, his lips close to her ear, sending shivers down her spine. Stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and bound to me, as I have been bound to you. Together, we will awaken the estate fully, and no force in this world, or any other, can stand against us. Her breath caught, her heart pounding. Every nerve in her body was alive with energy, fear, desire, and awe. Step, pause, step. She felt the estate itself reacting, pulsing, expanding, alive with recognition, and she realized that this moment, this union of power and destiny, was both terrifying and intoxicating. Energy flared, spiraling upward from the pedestal, wrapping around them, connecting their hearts, their minds, their souls. She felt centuries of the estate's memories, its guardians, and its power flowing through her, awakening every hidden corner of her being. She gasped, overwhelmed, her body trembling from the intensity. You are ready, he murmured, his lips brushing her hair, his hand firm on her shoulder. Embrace it. Embrace us. Embrace what we are meant to be. Step, pause, step. The shadows surged, not to threaten, but to merge, swirling around them in a brilliant display of light and darkness. She felt herself lifted, floating, weightless, as the estate responded fully to her presence. The Alpha King's eyes never left hers, his gaze both commanding and tender, a tether anchoring her to reality even as the chamber expanded into something ethereal, limitless, and timeless. You and I, together, he said softly. Bound by destiny, bound by power, bound by what has waited centuries for this moment. Her breath caught. She felt it, the connection between them, deep and electric, stirring something within her that was more than desire, more than longing. It was recognition, completion, inevitability. Step, pause, step. The energy surged again, and for a moment, the world faded, leaving only them, only the bond, only the awakening. The guardians, shadows, and whispers merged into a single force, acknowledging her fully as the chosen one. The estate pulsed, alive in a brilliance that was almost blinding. She could feel herself transformed, stronger, more aware, and yet completely connected to him, to the estate, to the destiny that had brought them together. Step, pause, step. The Alpha King drew closer, his face inches from hers, eyes glowing with molten amber fire. "You are mine," he whispered, a statement that was neither possessive nor cruel, but a truth of destiny, a recognition of the bond that had been forged through centuries of waiting, trials, and awakening. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of destiny, power, and emotion. "And I am yours," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Forever." Step, pause, step. Energy erupted around them, light and shadow, power and emotion, swirling in a dance that seemed to span centuries. The estate exhaled, its pulse slowing, settling, alive but calm, as if satisfied that its chosen one had finally arrived, awakened, and claimed her place. The Alpha King reached out, brushing her cheek, his thumb tracing a path along her skin. "We have done it," he murmured. "The estate is fully awakened. And we are whole." Her chest tightened, heart pounding, as she felt the depth of their bond, the culmination of trials, awakenings, and desire. Step, pause, step. She realized, with awe and certainty, that her life had changed forever. She had crossed into a world of ancient power, dark romance, and destiny fulfilled. The shadows receded, the whispers softened, and the chamber glowed with a soft, golden light. The guardians bowed, retreating to their positions, and the estate seemed to hum in contentment, alive, vibrant, and at peace. Step, pause, step. The Alpha King drew her into his arms, holding her close, and she rested her head against his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his presence, and the unspoken promise that they would face everything together, from darkness to light, from trials to eternity. "You are extraordinary," he whispered again, lips brushing her hair. "And now, we face the world together. As one. Bound. Forever." Step, pause, step. She closed her eyes, letting herself be held, letting herself feel the culmination of centuries of waiting, trials, and awakening. Fear, awe, desire, and love intertwined in a single, intoxicating thread that bound her to him, to the estate, and to the destiny they now shared. The final awakening had come. The estate's secrets had been revealed. Shadows tested, trials conquered, darkness faced, and now, light and power intertwined with desire and destiny. She had become the chosen one. They had become one. And the estate, centuries in waiting, pulsed in harmony with their hearts, their bond, and the eternal promise of what was yet to come. And in that moment, standing in the heart of an estate alive with centuries of power, they knew one truth: nothing would ever be ordinary again. They were bound, unstoppable, and eternal, together. If you'd survive a similar experience, would you comment below and share your story? If you loved this story, don't forget to subscribe to Emmy's Romance Collection for more dark fantasy tales. Hit the bell to never miss an Alpha King awakening story. Your next obsession awaits.